vote for that one. I told them I would vote one more time. So when you say no around here, you better have an answer. And I spent the last 10 months trying to come up with an answer. And sure enough, I've talked to think tanks and I've talked to individuals, but the most important people I talk to are my constituents. And my constituents, when they really realize that paying for something is important, user fees are important, they agree with it, and they're okay with it. They just want to make sure that what they're paying for, they're getting. And it's interesting because the one thing we've never talked about, but I was a mayor also in my community, we had a project back in 2002. It was $18.1 million. It was an interstate project. I was a mayor, had to come up with $1.8 million to put our 10% in. That money is now still sitting there 12 years later, and that project today is over $30 million. And that's the number we never talk about. The delay and the delay and the delay and the upward cost. And that's why these short-term fixes are not the answer. We have to make sure that we look at what's going on in the real world. So I also talked to my constituents, brought to my Tea Party people, and everybody's afraid of the Tea Party. I brought them all in. I said, well, I have a bill. That bill indexes the user fee. Are you for it or against it? First they were against it until I explained it to them. You know then what they said to me? Quit going to the general fund, quit going in there and taking dollars, because what you're doing is you're passing it on to our children and grandchildren, and what I'd be willing to do is pay a user fee as long as I get my roads and bridges fixed. Amazing. One person said to me, I just busted a rim, cost me $400, and it would only cost me a couple pennies a year, so I don't bust my tire. The average driver costs them $200 and some per year in repairs. Truck drivers, I'm sure it costs them. So we have to come up with a long-term solution. We can't continue to go down this path. And when I hear people talk about, electric cars, they only represent 0.71%. We've got to start. When I hear people saying we have more miles per gallon, absolutely, we have more drivers. 23% more drivers since 1980. So if you start using statistics here, we've just got to come up with an answer, because statistics, I've learned a long time, you can use them in your favor or against you. Now, what I heard from all three of you, and I hope you will answer this, you all agree that user fees are the answer, correct? Every one of you?
User fees provide certainly good incentives.
Right. In fact, Mr. Poole, you say using general fund and other non-transportation revenues to bail out the Highway Trust Fund undercuts the integrity of the user pay, user benefit principle.
Yes, I firmly believe that, and I think in the written testimony there's a lot of amplification of the reasons why user pays, user benefit is the best approach, and I think we're probably all in agreement on that.
Right, and that's what I thought I heard. And I also heard you all say, and I agree with you, that we are not going to have an answer by July 1st, a user fee answer, correct? You would all agree with that. So we have to come up with a long-term solution. Now, Mr. Pasquale mentioned a bill that he and I have. And quite frankly, it does give us 18 months by indexing the user fee. But a lot of people don't realize in that bill is that bipartisan bicameral committee can eliminate that index. If they think there's another answer, they can go and credit it. So it's not really an increase. It's a short-term solution. Now, Mr. Poole, you also mentioned, and I heard in your oral testimony, that we should stay with a user-based system, but we should modify it to get to what you believe is a vehicle miles driven tax, correct?
Correct, yes.
So some modification of the current user fee would get us there, correct?
Well, we need to get about 10 years before you could really have something at the federal level, a mileage-based user fee that would really be politically and economically feasible.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because the other thing I did the last 10 months is go around to my colleagues and ask them for answers, and I've had people say, I'm not voting for anything but a vehicle mileage tax, and I say to them, that's 10 years down the road.
And you're right.
Confirm that.
You're right.
But I think what I'm hearing out of this, and I really do appreciate the chairman willing to have this discussion, is we need to have a user fee-based program, and we need to do something long-term. And that's why, if you know the text of my bill, it gives us 18 months. It sets up a bipartisan, bicameral committee. Any thoughts on the bill from any of you that are aware of it?
Well, I'd only comment, Congressman, that based on what I saw in the last day or two from CBO about again, the challenges with debt, with the need for this Congress, this country to wisely use its general fund revenues, I think the near-term solution is something that's user-based, and the long-term solution is, well, whatever the long-term solution might be.
Thank you.
Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Meehan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank you for holding this important hearing. I have a couple of questions that I would like to get some feelings on. One, and Mr. Poole, you have identified a couple of times that there have been ideas